One. And we're live now here on the Bible Thumping Wingnut Network. This is the Council of Google Plus. I am John Wilkinson. Tonight we have Matt Slick, Andrew Rappaport, Calvinist Klein, and a bunch of others all already joined in already. Very happy. And we are now going to go ahead and just let you guys go at it. So I will go ahead and mute my mic. And Andrew, you want to continue on with whatever topic we're talking about before, or you want to just go ahead and try something else?
Well, I don't know that we have Gary here, but I guess what I was saying that you guys didn't get a chance to hear, folks on Mixler did, was just to finish up that the article that I was referencing when everyone got booted out was a article from a guy from Johns Hopkins University, which he was addressing. This is a guy who's studied human sexuality as his expertise for 40 years. And he said there is no gay gene, that transgenderism is a mental health issue. And, so this is coming from a non-Christian. This is coming from someone that's in a secular, Johns Hopkins University, PhD scientist, an expert in the field, and this is what he's saying. So it's, and I know the atheists are all bent out of shape if we quote people like this and use it against what they want. But the reality is, I think what we saw, and Matt, you could correct me if you think I'm wrong, but we saw, one person come in, just blanketly ignore evidence because it didn't agree with the conclusion. Then we had someone that came in, said they were a Christian, but didn't like the conclusions and wouldn't, first accuses you of being wrong for judging while he's judging you, and then saying that you're not allowed to have your choice and your view while he could say that this other person can have theirs. I mean, it seemed like a lot of inconsistency.
I agree. A lot of inconsistency. I'm trying to point it out. See, if they want to have a dialogue, they need to be polite and respectful. They can't sit there. If I say, look, I don't want to call you that. I don't like doing that. They should say, okay, because that's my preference. But they want me to call them what their preference is. It's a hypocritical thing. And they're just being inconsistent. And so I fight against bullies. I fight against that kind of one-sidedness. If the person had just simply said, okay, you know what, I don't agree with you, but I understand where you're coming from. Can we just move on to another topic and say, yeah, let's do that. That's all it had to be. But they don't want to do that because they're not into, the left stopo is not into fairness. They're not into real discussion. They're into agenda, the promoting of agenda. That's what they're really into.
You see this. You see it with the Trump rallies. I mean, or the Trump protests. I mean, it's amazing how they've researched all these supposed Trump supporters that are supposedly attacking people, and every one of these stories turns out to be a fake. The Muslim woman that said she was attacked by a guy with a Trump T-shirt, turns out she lied. Didn't happen. I mean, each one of these cases, and it's really sad because people don't realize. So if you don't agree with a vote, you're going to go protest it and say, "Not my president." If this isn't your country, you want California wants to exit from the union. California will never exit from the union for a simple reason. If they exit from the union, what would end up happening is the Democrats would lose every election. Every state, every presidential election, because they'd lose those 50 some, electoral votes. So, I mean, but the reality is, what you're seeing is a group of people that have been told for a long time that they're entitled to their beliefs and everyone should have to submit to it.
Right. Yeah, that's what the left is. The left. Oh, I got to send you a picture, Andrew. There's a great little yeah, I'm gonna send it to you.
Are you in that picture? Because I don't know if
No, yeah, that would happen. No, it was a great little here we go. I'm gonna send this to you. The new Trump is not my president starter kit. Okay. And let's see, hold on. I could put the picture on. Maybe I could do it on my phone and put it up on the camera. Let me just do that. Let me just see if I can do that. Cancel. Wait, discard. Here we go. The new Trump is not my president starter kit. Can you guys see this?
A diaper with a...
I think it's great.
So it's a guy with a pacifier around his neck, a diaper, wearing a diaper, and he's got a big safety pin and pacifier.
Yeah.
And diaper kit. That's great.
And if you guys don't know, they've actually had people on campuses wearing safety pins, wanting like a safe zone. So the safety pin is actually quite appropriate there.
What might be appropriate, Matt, is you have a thing that happened to you, I think, back in either college or seminary with a friend that was from another country, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there was a news account. Why don't you share that when we talk about fake news, right? Wasn't it something?
Oh, news. Yeah.
This
is only one of many things. But yeah, you can't trust the media. In fact, I just heard it on the radio today. I'm trying to... I'm going to do this. This is a shameful plug. I want to get Sirius radios stuff in for my car so I can listen to stuff, because I drive and I want to start listening to news now, all kinds of stuff. And the commercials are just horrible. So I need $250 to get it all set up. But at any rate, I was going to see if Carm could pay for it, but the board goes, no. Anyway, I don't trust the news media. You got to get a lot of different sources. But the thing is this, that back in the seminary, a guy came to me, and he was studying to be a minister, a Master of Divinity degree, and he's told me that he was watching the news the night before, and it was the apartheid time. And he was watching the news, and he recognized a street corner where the riots were occurring on the news live. He called up his brother, because it was his brother's street corner, and he's talking to his brother live while he's watching the live news, and nothing was going on. In other words, the news media had invented a false story, completely fabricated it. It was a flat-out lie. And my friend said he was talking to his brother, watching the live event happening from South Africa, but he saw, he knew it was his brother's street. Just one of those things that's going to happen, and he did. And his brother said, "Nothing's happening, nothing at all. Nobody's out there. He look out his window and see." So this is just one of the things that I've seen.
I actually wanted to bring up something that this might be heading back a topic, but it has to do with biology and the use of masculine and feminine pronouns. Because I don't know how other people approach this, but when I went to school, they taught us that the use of masculine and feminine pronouns has to do with whether or not someone is male or female. Whether or not someone is male or female is determined by biological sex, from my understanding anyway. So I find it kind of strange that, I've seen people try and use free speech. You can't use hate speech. That's hateful. It's this phobic, that phobic, what have you. But I find it very interesting that it's in saying, okay, you have, we want free speech, but this hate speech. It's like, okay, you're saying that I can't freely use pronouns the way that I'm using them. When I use a masculine pronoun, I'm commenting that person is biologically a male. They have XY chromosomes. It goes the same thing, and I like consistency in things. So when I comment on, oh, that dog over there, yeah, she eats a lot. I'm not trying to figure out what the dog identifies as. I'm commenting on the genes, the biological sex of the dog. When I hear that people who are consider themselves transgender are having their driver's license changed, I find that kind of strange, like the sex on the driver's license changed, because regardless of how much you know, hormone replacement happens. At least at present, we don't have a way to change someone's chromosomes. And again, from my understanding, biologically speaking, not, you know, what someone thinks they are, but biologically speaking, the male or female M or F on the driver's license or other form of identification refers to that. So I don't know. That's kind of my take on how I try and stay consistent when I'm discussing things with people. And if people are trying to tell me, no, you can't use pronouns the way you always have and the way you consistently do, it just seems a little weird to me.
You remind me of something. It's a war of words that's going on. You said something, I was taking a little bit of notes. The war of words that's going on in this leftist stuff, this left-stopo thing, is propaganda. Because if you can change the words your opponent uses, then you can win the argument. That's a very important point. If excuse me, if you change what your opponent by getting them to change the definitions that you assign, then you win. This is what's happening. So, for example, partner is being used instead of husband or wife. And there's, I want to find out some others that are like this, because I just now start remembering this, put my notes down. But it's always bothered me, you know, your partner, what's your partner? It's the stripping away of identity and gender identity, and even stripping away the idea of marriage. So it's a moral thing that's going on when they try and use neutral terms, gender neutral thing. That's a moral issue, because they're dealing with the issue of marriage itself, male and female relationships, covenants, promises, and all kinds of things.
You know, that actually, and I don't necessarily, I kind of have pause when talking about, and I have no problem calling Brenda, because you can change your name to Fly Fishing in the USA, like a guy I heard on the radio did, and I'll call you Fly, fine. But I kind of have pause when Brenda isn't here, so he can't talk for himself. But it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was she was in or he was in last week in the Aftershow, and we were discussing free will, and he was trying to say that that free will and the Calvinistic determinism or predestination don't comport. But what he was doing was he was trying to take a different definition of what free will is and try and apply that to us. Which, again, it sounds very similar to what you were saying, where it's like, okay, well, you have to use my definition of this so that your belief is logically contradictory. When we're trying to say, no, biblically speaking, what is meant by free will is this. No, you can't use your definition. You have to use my definition, so I automatically defeat you, because now you're being logically contradictory, or logically contradicting yourself. It's like, no, we're not using your definition. We're using the biblical definition. So it's interesting that you brought that up, because that was something that Brenda did last week.
Yeah, it's important. The left uses propaganda, and what propaganda is redefinitions with denotation is different than a connotation. So denotation is, for example, a house. A denotation stripped of emotional. Home, a connotation, has warmth to it. So the left such terms as fetus instead of baby, because they want denotation instead of connotation. So when they're defending their lie, relativism, they'll use denotations instead of connotations. However, when they go instead of denotations, they'll use, in other words, connotative words instead of denotative words. They will use words that are filled with emotionally charged things. So to them,
Matt, you're cutting out off and on. You're I don't know why, but whenever you're talking, it's like 4 or 5 words, and then after that you're cut out
Okay.
for like 2 or 3.
Okay. How about this? So what the left is doing is using words that are stripped of meaning, of an emotional meaning. That's called denotation. When they defend their own moral ambivalence. But when they are attacking you, or the conservatives, then they use emotionally laden terms. It's called denotation versus connotation. So, as I said, they will use abortion is just removing a fetus. It's not killing a baby. But when they are talking to you about your position, you don't like homosexuality, you're a homophobe. And then they assign negative value to it. This is a methodology of propaganda. This is exactly what the left does.
Completely agree. They just go ahead and they want to label you something negative. I saw something just recently, actually. It was kind of funny, where they were saying if you do a Wikipedia search of the word Black Pride and also Gay Pride, like Asian Pride, they all give you positive definitions. But when you look for the word White Pride, it's all negative. It's all racist. And so it's just really interesting how it's the constant shaming of white people.
Yeah, this is one of the books you guys should get. I haven't read this particular reading a book that mentioned this a lot. It's Rules for Radicals. And I think that what we could do sometime, all seriousness, I think a good thing to do would be all of us to read it, each get a copy, read it, we highlight things, and we have a 2-hour discussion about it. Because this stuff is important, what's going on. It helps to identify what the left is doing. Chapters such as the purpose of means and ends. In other words, the ends justify the means. And then how to use words and tactics, how to accuse people, how to use double standards, how to lie, how to misrepresent, how to make demands. All this kind of stuff is in there. I'm going to be reading it probably starting in a couple of weeks. I've been having to do some other things, but it's probably it's 180 pages or so. It's a bit of a read.
Is there a chapter in there about fashioning victimhood as a weapon to use against others?
Victimhood is part of it. Yep, victimhood is mentioned in there. And I have the book on Kindle as well as in hardbound. It's rare that I'll do both, but I think that this one's important enough for me to mark into the book and carry it with me when I go to speak places and do things and say right here in this book. And so that's what I'm going to be doing, is using it as a tool for that. But yeah, victim mentality, and also setting people against each other, the haves and the have-nots. And by doing that, you can cause anger. You can cause people to be resentful. And when you do that, then what you can do is to control them. And this is all serious stuff. This is what Alinsky wrote, and the left is using it. Now, one of the things I've learned is, this is a principle, and I'm kind of using it, have been using it, like tonight on the other thing where before we got booted, is that the left, well, a principle, we lose society incrementally. We lose things incrementally. We don't get it back incrementally. We get it back suddenly. History tells us, and this is what historians have told me, the people who studied history, they've told me this, that you lose morality a little at a time, but revolutions get it back. It's sudden and swift. Now, what's brewing here in America is a revolution, because we've been losing incrementally all kinds of things. The fact that Trump got in, just so you know, I didn't vote for Trump, but just because Trump got in, it's a sign that people are getting sick and tired of the Gestapo doing what they're doing, pushing their agenda, misrepresenting facts, demonizing Christians, demonizing conservatives. People are getting upset. And so what's happening is people are starting to fight back. I have been talking to people for a bit now who've been telling me that they're ready for revolution. And I mean, when they say revolution, they're ready to march with weapons. They are, I'm not advocating that.
Go on Twitter. When you go on Twitter, do a hashtag of J20.
J20?
J0. Hashtag J220. That stands for January 20th, which is the inauguration day. This is what they're using in order to communicate with one another to basically put up a huge protest. There's going to be a huge. It's going to be pretty scary what's happening.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
So an interesting thing, get back to a different topic just for a quick second, but we were just doing some research, and I know Matt likes numbers. So 41%, that is the attempted suicide rate of transgender people. So 41% of the transgenders attempt suicide at least once in their life.
Yeah.
That's a huge number. And if people don't want to see that as a real epidemic that needs to be dealt with, and something that needs to be addressed as a mental health issue.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention really quickly, because a lot of people, well, I don't know if I'll say a lot, but people I've run into or seen videos of or seen online talk about that very thing, they'll try and play that off as, okay, well, that's because they're being persecuted, they're being oppressed, they're being ridiculed.
Yeah, but the thing is, we live in a culture where they're not being oppressed, and the other interesting thing is that many of them get the sex changes and then commit suicide.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the interesting thing is that the suicide rates on both sides are basically equivalent to each other, from what I understand. But the reason why I bring this up is because the only other, from what I understand anyway, the only other equivalent to people committing suicide when they're being oppressed were, and this would actually hit home somewhat for you, Andrew, were Jews in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
When they were in the concentration camps. That's the only other like group of people that came even closer. So if they're wanting to play that off as, oh, they've got people who are rejecting them, that the Christians are saying, oh, you guys, this, that, or the thing, you won't use our pronouns, and that's causing them to have such mental stress that they want to commit suicide at a rate that is equivalent to the Jews in Nazi Germany internment camps, or death camps. I really think that you'd have to examine, what happened to the Jews before you actually say that's the reason, that the being persecuted is the reason behind that. I think it probably has something to do with mental disorders. In fact, I think only those who are mentally ill have as high of suicide rates, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, guys, man, I'm doing a J20 search and reading some of the stuff that people are saying. Oh my goodness.
Crazy, huh?
They're mental.
I mean, I'm just reading this. It's start organizing friends, family to brainstorm creative ideas to agitate, disrupt, and stop racist capitalist profit machine. In other words, let's destroy the country.
Yeah. Woo. Look at this. Fight for transgender people. Fight for undocumented people. They're breaking the law. Yeah. Fight for women. Fight for workers. I mean, it's what?
So,
who are these people?
Look at this one. Build resistance against Trump and his America. Well, you know what I think? If they're going to make the distinction between Trump and them, and as whether it's Trump's America or their America, I think it would only be fair that Trump just says, okay, you all can leave now. I mean, if they're burning American flags, they don't want to be here. Leave. Stop trying to change America into something it never was.
The J20 rally will rally leaders from all branches of progress. We will lay claim to a new America for and replenish its soul.
So you want to talk, Matt, about the book you've been reading from Lewinsky?
I haven't been reading it yet. I've been reading a book about it. But hold on a sec. Actually, I've been reading a book called Rules for Conservatives. And so I've got some interesting stuff in here, and I've highlighted from that book. I can read you some things. It's really interesting.
So I didn't think about this. So January 20th is going to be a Friday.
Oh, you know what? We'll be at G3 at that point.
I don't know, but that's going to be.
I think G3 is like from the 18th to the 23rd or
Oh
something.
wow, in Atlanta, huh? Let's see. You are correct.
We'll be at G3 at that time.
Oh, we're going to be
What's
in
G3?
the G3 conference in Atlanta.
What's that?
It's a Christian conference. A lot of big speakers will be there. Phil Johnson, James White.
Apologetics.
Yeah, this year they'll deal with the five solas like every other conference except ours.
I wish they would ask me. It'd be nice to be asked to something like this sometime.
The theme is 500 years of Reformation, so
yeah,
it's gonna be real fun.
But having I can just see with inauguration on the 20th, it is going to be a full weekend of nonstop nonsense. Wow.
Yeah, expect a lot of protesting that day.
Well, fortunately, they won't be protesting at the airport. So hopefully my flight will get out.
I don't know. They may
America
join together on the runway.
The thing is this is what I've said all along, that you got a president who is nothing but a mob organizer. That's his only job that he ever had, was mob organizing. And hold on a second. And so now that's what we have. Let me just check. There's a car just parked in front of my house.
I got a quick question. Since we're
go check that out.
What all constitute a covenant?
Usually, a covenant has agreements that both parties are to adhere to, with rewards and punishments for breaking the covenant.
Would laws be a part of a covenant?
With what?
Laws.
Laws?
Yeah.
It depends on how the covenant's arranged, but there are different styles, but yeah.
My question, really, the reason why I asked that is, in the new heaven and new earth, after everything's done, some of these covenants were said to be eternal. Are they still in effect in that time? And if so, like, would laws and all be part of that? Would we need laws if we were in a perfected state, so to speak?
I'm sorry, I'm still distracted by this idiocy on Twitter. Depends on what the covenant is. You have to go through and read a different kind of covenants and different covenants within those. So you have to read each one. So I don't like to generically say this is what it all means, but generically speaking, a covenant is a promise, agreement between two or more parties, and with rewards and stipulations. Okay, so there's different kinds. You there?
So would those promises still be in effect in the
depends on the covenant?
New earth.
Depends on the covenant. Like the eternal covenant spoken of in Hebrews 13:20, where God gave the Son to the elect in order to redeem. Well, is that an eternal covenant? It is in the past tense. So, depends on the stipulations of the covenant to know if it's eternal or not. Was that Wayne an atheist? I like talking to atheists. So it just depends. Seriously, it depends on the covenant aspect, which covenant you're looking at, and the stipulations within it, and just see if it's eternal or not eternal, what kind. Make sense?
Would you then consider the Noahic covenant a covenant then?
It was, because you just called it. You said the Noahic covenant. Is it a covenant?
Well, right. Well, because I would say that it is a covenant, but it didn't seem to be, it was an agreement by one party, and there was no stipulation on human beings.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do anything for that covenant.
Right. That's why I said generally speaking.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah, because the Noahic covenant is a promise that God has made with Noah and the progeny. So it's a covenant. It's a promise. And you'll see different kinds of covenants and ratifications of covenants where an animal is killed, split in two, and then the Shekinah presence of God will pass through it. He's making a covenant. May this be done to me, is what he's saying, if I break this covenant. So there's that kind of covenant. Then there's the intertrinitarian covenant. Then there's a covenant that he makes with us. So it's not easy to get to. Seriously, it's not.
I was just curious. What y'all's thoughts?
General Han Solo. So are you an atheist?
No, he's a Christian, but you were actually talking with him last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to remember.
But yeah. Yeah, it's an open floor right now, guys. Everyone should be presented, and you can unmute your mic and ask Matt anything you want.
I'm worried about Andrew.
Why are you worried about Andrew?
Okay. You went to check on somebody and you ain't came back.
Oh no, I did come back. No, there was I just shut the mic because I was talking to my wife about this nonsense about the protests and all. But no, yeah, actually, and Matt will understand this, but I have yeah, I mean, I have, like, you know, I'll see cars pull up. Actually, we have one of the things, and the reason I knew it wasn't one of the police, we have the police come by regularly, just patrol the house, and they'll actually flash their lights to let me know that it's them when they're doing a ride around to just check on my house. But I actually have cameras outside, so if there's any movement, I get an immediate text message if there's any movement on the property. So, but it was actually my neighbor. But he pulled up like right by my house and stood there, and then I guess he was looking to do something, might probably move his trash or something, and then he parked. So it was fine. But these are things, unfortunately, right, Matt, that we end up having to do nowadays because of the tolerance of the.
Yep. Yeah, and I understand why you, just as much as me, need to be secure. So. Yep.
Well, yeah, but you live in a state that allows where you can defend yourself.
Yeah, Idaho is great, and I was out shopping for a new gun holster today, and I bought pants today, my wife and I, so I can fit my concealed weapon in it and stuff like that.
So we're taking you and I are going to go out. Is your wife going to come? Because I know that Nate has asked, and my wife's going to come shooting with us. So
I don't know if she wants to. If it's not too cold, she may or may not. Just depends how she's feeling.
I told Matt to tell Neek that I was going to teach Neek some new chokeholds from Matt.
Yeah, she likes that idea.
And Matt was laughing so hard he could barely tell her.
I actually taught her once. Get this, I've never used my martial arts on anybody. And years ago, I was taking a hard style of Kung Fu. I taught her how to do a wrist lock and how to do a takedown and, just stuff, because she was a waitress and some waiter or a busboy dude was hassling her all the time. So I had her do it to me. I said, ask her to hold his hand, do this, do that, and I had her get me on the ground, and then put her foot on my, behind here, lock me out with my arm up like this. And there's different ways to do it, but do that. And I said, he won't give you much resistance. And I said, and then tell him you don't want him to bother you anymore. And then before you let his hand go, just press it, the wrist lock, press, and he'll yelp out, and then you let him go. And a week later, she says she did it. I said, what? She goes, yeah, I did it to the guy. I go, what? She goes, yeah, I was in the kitchen, and he was like, so I grabbed his, said, can I hold your hand? He holds her hand down. And
she's all excited, like, oh, yeah, she wants to hold my hand.
Yeah, she did a double thumb, because she's weak, as a girl. But she did a double thumb like this, behind here with both hands, got him down, locked his arm, got him down, and literally had him on the ground in the kitchen, on the Florida tile, and put her foot right and everything, and talked to him. And I'm like, no way, she's that girl, and she did it, and I've never used it.
My wife had taken a self-defense class, and I wanted to make sure she learned it and knew, and so she did this one. She learned this one technique where you come behind her. If someone comes behind you, and you basically bump them in an area for guys that is going to be very
unpleasant,
painful. And so I wanted to make sure she actually could defend herself, and I discovered in a very painful way.
Bad idea.
She learned it well.
I had her once. We were once in karate, and we used to do, and Matt knows I do a couple different martial arts, and So we were taking Ishinru and as a family, and when she would spar, it's kind of just, she'd spar with me or the kids or someone else, but it was like just light stuff. And I was like, I really want to see that you know what you're doing. I want to see you defend yourself. Come on, get serious. And so all of a sudden it was like a switch flipped. And she had this angry look on her face. And I was like, I'm fighting. I mean, she's fighting. And I'm sitting there like, I think I'm sleeping outside tonight. Like, I think I pushed it. Cause I was really telling her, I'm like, come on, I want to see you defend yourself. So I was kind of hitting her and she defended herself pretty good, but I was like really worried.
I think they want an opportunity to see their husbands in pain. I think that's what it is with the ladies.
Is that what it is, hon? You want to see me in pain? No.
Make me angry, I'll defend myself.
Did you hear that? She said if we make her angry, she's gonna defend. Or if I make her angry, she'll defend herself. So yeah. So Yim, you want to do some jiu-jitsu with me? You want to start? You know what she calls Matt? You know what she refers to jiu-jitsu? She says, what? She goes, why would I want to sit there and just hug a different person on it? Like, she's like, why do you want to go and just hug guys on the ground?
That's what I always wonder about. That's why I like Krav Maga, because there's no homo in it.
This is actually pretty just hugging guys.
What was that?
Now, I just wanted to point out that I'm a martial artist. As you can see in this photo, I practice Japanese kendo and judo and jiu-jitsu. It's no funny matter. It's a pretty dangerous sport.
Oh yeah. Well, we're making fun. I mean, I've done 3 martial arts styles. I don't know how many he's done. We just talk about it, but they'll have advantages, disadvantages, and stuff. But yeah, we just.
I took a year of karate go-ju and then 6 months of aikai jitsu, and I can only do 6 months of that because it just was too painful.
Yeah.
it was too painful.
The thing is, it really comes down with any of them. It comes down to somewhat of the instructor, somewhat of the student. But I mean, I remember in high school we had a guy who got a black belt in Taekwondo, and in the school he was in, and this is not, I think, typical for most Taekwondos, but in where he was, they did no sparring ever. He got a black belt without ever sparring. They focused on in Taekwondo, which is why I say it's not typical. Their focus was on how fast you can throw punches and how many boards you can break.
Wow.
And we were in a class, and I remember just saying, that's not good. I mean, you get a black belt, and boards don't punch back.
Right.
And the teacher actually said, if we were both willing, he could get 1 punch and I could try to block it or defend it. I couldn't respond, but, and literally he came, he threw a punch. I just, moved out of the way, used his weight, which is what I was trained to do, just grabbed his arm and just used his weight and threw him into a desk. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I felt bad for the guy in the sense of,
right, all that
he's
work.
got a black belt, but he really couldn't defend himself against someone that was only a blue belt.
Right. Well, that's one thing. Disadvantage about Krav Maga is you can't spar because it's too aggressive. Gouging eyes, punching in throats. You really can't do that. So you have to do it a different kind of a way. That's one of the things I don't know. I like to get into something where you can put all the pads on, and some levels of Krav you can do that. You pull the pads on, and you're supposed to go 50%. You can't hit the groin, you can't hit the eyes, you can't break collarbones, and then it's not really Krav anymore. So,
well, one of the things that, and actually, I know a lot of people don't like doing, at least in karate, what we do is move at 10% speed.
Right.
And I actually really enjoyed that because what it does is it forces you to focus on technique and the proper movements, right, things like that. And it's actually, you think it's easy, but it's actually kind of hard because you're purposely going slow. You're purposely focusing on the technique. I mean, you're clearly not hitting a person hard, and they're moving just as slow. And, so clearly you could, you see the movement coming, but it actually does help in a lot of ways to train you to spot it.
Yep. I totally agree with you. We would do slow movements, and the instructor would say, and he would point things out. I'm like, I was doing that? Yeah, you're doing this wrong. Are you kidding me? Why would I do that? And super slow and it would work. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It's it's a lot of people think it wouldn't work, but
It works.
it does. It forces you to kind of really focus in and on the smaller technique. That's actually what I think the reason I like the jiu-jitsu as much. I've really been enjoying that one more because in a lot of the martial arts that I've taken, it's this is how you kick, this is how you punch it. It's repetition, and then it's all the katas or the forms. But this is really jiu-jitsu is there's so much to it that it's really tailored to the individual person because there's so many different ways you can do things. So it's based on body type and
Right.
how, where you're stronger or weaker, how to do things. So.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Everything has advantages, disadvantages, but yeah. Yep.
And so, Vincent and John, I know you guys are going to G3. Are you guys bringing some gis because we're planning to go and do some rolling?
Actually, I'm not going to G3. Vincent is.
Me, David, and Chris Harris are going.
You guys going to bring some gis, or should I bring some extras for you?
Dude, I'm a professional wrestler. We'll throw down.
So you're going with Len. I'm pairing you up with Len. Len doesn't like being choked out.
Man, that's going to be a good conference.
What's Len weigh?
A lot more than me. I know that.
And they got some really good speakers going. G3. I saw the list.
Why don't you read the list off?
Man, I don't have it in front of me, but I know Vodi's going.
Yeah, but I'll read it. It's easy to get there. b3conference.com. I mean, all right, let's see. Where's the speakers? Here they are. Paul Washer, Steve Lawson, D.A. Carson, Vodi Bacham, James White, Tim Chalais. I guess that's how you say it. I'm not sure.
Tim Chalais.
I'm French, yeah. Conrad Mbibwe, Phil Johnson, Josh Buis. Some of these names are not easy.
Conrad Mbibwe.
Mbibwe. Oh, Rosaria Butterfield's going to be there. David Hall.
That's going to be good.
Todd Friel. John Krotz. Nathan, I can't say his last name. Busenitz.
Sweet. Someone from my denomination will be there.
Chip Thornton, Chris King.
Maybe they'll get saved.
Anthony Messina. Scott Klusendorf. That's the list. I know Dr. James White's going to be doing a debate on the 18th against the Roman Catholic Answers guy.
Yeah, Catholic Answers too. They've been getting like worse and worse. I think that's just my opinion. Like Catholic Answers is just like it's a joke now. It really is. If you guys listen to some of the stuff that they just post,
What's the worst thing you heard recently from them?
I think it was on. I have to do a search because they have the most recent videos on their YouTube channel. It had to be a couple of months ago. I was watching something. Was it on the? I don't know if it was on the Perpetual Virginity. Might have been. I think. But it's Sola Scriptura was the. You remember if you guys saw James White's review of the Sola Scriptura argument against Sola Scriptura that they had, Catholic Answers? Did you guys see that?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
That was really bad. It just was super inconsistent and yeah. I don't know. I know. Oh, Matt's still in here. Matt, you there?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know you used to listen to Catholic Answers a lot, right? I thought.
Yeah, I do every now and then. Yeah.
Okay. Because what did you think about? Oh, go ahead, Vincent. Sorry.
I was just going to say quickly, here's one that I had somebody made me tell Dr. White was the host literally said, speaking of indulgences, that given enough time, people could pay their sin off. But since life is too short to do that, that's the purpose of purgatory. That was on one recent broadcast. So.
Wow. That is so mad.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm excited. It's always really interesting to see like Reformed Christians go up against the Roman Catholic Church, because it's really the only apologetic that can go toe to toe with it and just destroy it. There's no, you can't put a synergist with next to Roman Catholic and expect anything to happen. It's like, because it's just synergism. It's a mix of synergism. But when you see the real contrast between monergism and synergism when you have a Reformed apologetic against synergistic apologetic. So
I love the Catholic answers to bringing up the Council of Trent and how basically the Council of Trent basically went through every Reformed doctrine there was and said that if you believe this, you're anathema. And that actually the very last article in the Council of Trent was, if you disagree with anything in the Council of Trent, you're anathema. So they go and you talk to modern day Catholic apologists, and they'll say, well, anathema doesn't mean like, oh, you're banned to hell. It was just that it just meant that you were outside of the Catholic Church. That was it. They didn't. I mean, that is their standard answer. That anathema just means that you're you're outside the bounds of the Catholic Church. That's what anathema.
Man. I'm gonna do a BDAG search on anathema.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, here there's so many problems with that. First of all, they use the same Latin word for anathema that Paul uses. And we obviously know how Paul uses the word anathema in Scripture. So it's inconsistent on that point. If you read the writers of the Council of Trent and read what they believed about Protestants, it's very clear that they thought they were going to hell for their views on justification by faith alone in Christ alone. So their outside writings, outside of Trent, made it very clear what they meant in Trent. Third, the Catholic Church, by their doings during the Reformation, during the Council of Trent, was to burn Protestants and burn Calvinists and Lutherans at the stake for heresy, like they would people like Servetus or people who denied the Trinity or Anabaptists. The Catholic Church would declare these people heretics and burn them at the stake. So by their actions, they were showing how they viewed Protestantism. They viewed it as heresy, and that it was damnable. So it is absolutely absurd that they would say that, oh, well, anathema just means you're outside of the bounds of what the Catholic Church believes. That's all that means.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
It's inconsistent.
It's a lie. It's a lie. It's just a flat out lie.
Well, but come on, Rocco. You know that anyone outside the Catholic Church, they burn at the stake, right? I mean, that just means that they're outside the church.
They also believe that. I mean, back then during the Council of Trent, they also believed that if you weren't part of the Catholic Church, you were damned. So, like, okay, well, even if I were to take your definition of anathema as true, that they were outside of, that means that you're outside of the Catholic Church, well, then logic therefore says that I'm going to hell because I'm not part of the Holy Catholic Church.
Yeah, but see, what you don't understand is that they're anachronistically trying to impose a different, view of the word to worm their way out of things.
Right. Well, even their bad definition of the word of anathema, the problem is the Catholic Church at that time believed that if you were outside the Catholic Church, you were damned. So, okay, I'm anathema, I'm outside the Catholic Church, which means I'm damned because you believe that anybody outside the Catholic Church is damned. So it fails on that front too.
Mm-hmm.
Aggravating.
Yeah, it is pretty aggravating. I want to see some of their best. We've already seen it in the past. I think it was last month with that whole Sola Scriptura segment that they had. I have to rewatch it, re-listen to it. is absolutely terrible. That I forget the word, and it's in 1 Timothy 3:16. But that one word, it's a word for sufficient. I don't know it off the top of my head. But the Greek word, they try to play games with it, and they're like, no, see, I have to look it up. I don't want to be. Yeah, I gotta look it up real quick. What that word is. And everybody's quiet tonight.
Yeah, don't get Matt slick on the Catholics. Oh man, he'll go.
Yeah, no, I knew Matt was in here. I didn't know if he was still in here, but I was like, I want to get Matt because
I'm listening. I'm not responding to your taunting.
Yeah, because I know Matt. Oh, you go ahead, Rocket. I'm sorry, man.
Well, was anything I said off point there, Matt? To you?
I was kind of half listening. I'm working on a little bit of a mini project here.
Okay, no problem. That's all right.
Yeah, Catholicism sucks. There you go.
Okay, good.
Enough said.
Oh, I said 1 Timothy. I'm sorry, I meant 2 Timothy 3:16. By the way.
Let me look at the Greek for you.
Profitable. Oh, I have it. It's ophelemos. Ophelemos.
Profitable?
Profitable. Yes.
Ophelemos, right. Ophelemos. Anyway, that's interesting. Hold on a sec.
Oh, we're about to get an insight into how Matt Slick's brain works.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay, now you got me accidentally onto something here. Hold on. So let's go to Matthew 6:12.
The Lord's Prayer, right? Is that the Lord's Prayer?
Yeah. Interesting. They're different words, I guess. Lema, ophilemos. Okay. Matthew 6:12, and forgive us our debts as we've also forgiven our debtors. The word debt there is, get this going here, put this in here. This is Matthew 6:12, philema, okay? And then the word for profitable is, no way. It can't be right. What? This is getting interesting. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Why would it be like that? Feeling. Okay, wait. Sorry. Hold on. 3:7. Ophilema. I just put that in. Now this profitable is 5624. Well, okay, it's a little bit different. Okay. Whew. Good. I was not reading it right. See how similar they are?
Yeah. Oh, one's okay. One's one has an omega in it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's it wasn't omega versus an omicron, but and then one has an EI instead of E. It just anyway. I go, wait a minute. That's kind of interesting. I guess yeah, they're different words, but they sound similar.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was interesting. Like, what? What if it was the same root? And that's what I was thinking about. What if it was the same something? And then the word, that would really be interesting with the word profitable. Just like the word, oh, cool, doing that. Just like the word agape doesn't mean divine love all the time. It could mean something else. And so when you start looking at it, anyway, just an interesting, got me thinking kind of thing. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, maybe okay. It's artios is the actual word. Artios.
For what?
It's for complete. That's the word that there's.
Oh, okay.
About. Yeah, there's a textual variant right before that. I don't know if that it's teleios. Oh.
What Bible program is that?
That's
Oh,
what
it's
I wanted to ask.
accordance.
Okay, which one is it?
Yeah. Accordance 12. Is that weird?
Is it on the web or is it something you bought?
Oh, someone bought. Yeah.
Accordance is one of the better ones for the original languages.
I like that.
I really like I have the NA28 and the UBS 5th. Like,
Wow,
just 2 pages.
I want that. Where do
You could do that in Logos.
Yeah, you could, but
You can do everything in Logos.
Accordance is way better, I think. Because I had Logos for a little while, but
Yeah, when did you have Logos? Which one?
I think it was 6.
5.
Was it?
Yeah,
It wasn't 5. No,
five.
it was 5. It was back. It was probably like 6, 7 months ago.
They did a lot in 6 and even more in 7.
I still have 3, and it's still good.
No, I'll tell you, if you still have 3 and you go up to 7, it's amazing what they have now.
Hey guys, I need to get going. We have a movie date of the family tonight, and I've already pushed it past where we're supposed to go. We're going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy.
Later, Matt.
Nice.
All right, Matt. God bless.
Is this when we get to talk about Matt now? Can we?
Yeah, that's you got to do that. All right, we'll see you guys. God bless.
I'll get some good things to pull on Matt for his birthday. You need ideas, guys.
Good. We'll see ya.
I actually need what I need is a costume. Matt's having us all dress up for his birthday.
Are you going to go to his house?
Go as.
I saw Vincent and Josh both say something, but I couldn't hear it since you talked over each other.
Oh, you go first, Vincent. Sorry.
All I was going to say is, are you going to his house for his birthday, or is he coming to you?
No, I'm going out to his place, and my wife and are going to go out and hang with his family for a little bit of a long weekend, and we haven't gotten together since like April, so yeah.
How do y'all afford to travel so much?
Well, because I travel so much for ministry, I get lots of miles. So the way we're actually doing this one is I get a free companion ticket every year. So my wife travels with me once a year for free. So we used it for this trip. So
David has to become a taxi service in order to afford to go to G3. How's it going? Hey, David, you there? Tell us about that Uber. How's that work? Is it Uber?
That's right, dude. I drove for Uber last night because I'm trying to make some extra money for G3. Nice. You know what? It was all right. It's a lot of. Never mind. No,
do you get to evangelize? Can you evangelize folks or?
I'm not really sure. It was my first night. I will say this: I noticed that millennials have no idea how to make small talk or just make a general conversation. Anytime I picked up somebody that was like 35 to like 50, they talked the whole time. I picked up somebody that was like 18 to 30, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then they just sat there in silence the whole time and made it awkward. So that was weird.
Well, maybe if you tried texting them, they'd respond a lot more.
I used to drive for Lyft for a while. Yeah, it was pretty much the same thing. And for the evangelism thing, I know for Lyft and I know for Uber, they base your performance based on rider feedback. So if you evangelize and someone doesn't like it, they'll give you 1 star. And if you keep getting 1 star, then Uber will just say you're not allowed to drive for us anymore. So I mean, there was different ways I tried to sneak that conversation in without, quote unquote forcing it. I would just usually ask them like, "Oh, what do you study at school and stuff?" I'm like, "Oh, and sometimes I look young enough that sometimes they would ask me if I was still in school or not. And I said, no, I went to Geneva College. It's a small Christian college. I studied Christian ministries and then see how they reacted after that. And then sometimes I could talk about that stuff.
The only thing I would see you know, I mean, you're so ugly. I could kind of picture them actually getting in your car.
I didn't have the beard at that time.
Oh, okay.
It's cold-blooded, dude.
Okay, so Rocco and I know each other well. I've been privileged to stay at his house. I really enjoyed it. Got to meet his family, so he knows I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But I'll give you guys for humor's sake. I'll give you a story with Uber. When Uber first came out, I got involved in it, and I really liked it. It's just say, here I am. Here's where I need to go, and so I basically have like an adopted daughter, and so she's in New York, and we kind of have this, like, if you guys ever see me post when I'm traveling, and I'm always tagging her in it because of this. Basically what I'm going to tell you happened was, so we were in Times Square, New York, and if you've ever been in Times Square, there's lots of people there, and someone came up to get a picture with me. And they had a whole team of people there. Actually, they saw me leave the hotel, and we went out to evangelize, and they were literally walking up and down Times Square looking for me. And so she started busting on me, saying that I'm a celebrity. I'm like, that never happens. 2 days later, we're in Washington Square Park. Someone walks up, and she was right there, and they were like, "Wait, you're Andrew Rapport. Can I get a picture with you?" So I was dead. I mean, I'm like, you know, because it just happened twice, and I'm like, this never happens. So she's got this ongoing thing that she thinks I'm a celebrity. Okay, so it's not true, but it's pertinent to the story. So when Uber starts, I mean, the nice thing about Uber is you request an Uber, you get in the car, you know the license plate, the driver's name, right, and you just go. So she had no idea what Uber was. And we were walking around in New York, and we were about, good half mile to a mile to the nearest subway. And neither of us felt like walking. We were out all day. And so we were staying at this place, and I just turned and I said, you want to get a car, and we'll just drive back. And she's like, sure. So I get an Uber without telling her. I mean, she just saw me on my phone. She had no idea. And so I just sit there, and we walk out of the park, and I just walk right up to the car, and I open the door. And she looks at me and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Get in. This is our car." And she's like, "Whose car is this?" I said, "It's our car." I push her in to the car. I sit behind her. I say hello to the driver by name. And he's like, he just says, "Hello, Andrew." And he starts driving. And she's like, "What in the world is going on here?" And I just turned to her. I'm like, "What, you don't know all celebrities have cars just following them around just in case they need to, because he dropped us off right where we needed to be." And she was like, "What in the world just happened?" I was like, all celebrities have cars just following them around in case they need a ride somewhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
Totally got her.
Oh, man.
Totally got her.
The worst ride I ever had, it was a Friday. It was late on a Friday night, and that's usually kind of like the busy time for when you drive around and stuff, because people were getting out of bars or getting out, anywhere. And so I got a call at one of the busy areas, kind of like where all the bars are at in Pittsburgh. And I get there, and there's like 5 girls that come out, and one could not even stand up. So these 4 girls pushed this girl into the back of my seat and told me the address to drop her off at, and left her in my car like that.
What?
Yes. Like, these were the worst friends you could ever have. And this girl is like passed out, and they left, and they went into the crowd, and I could not. I'm like, what am I going to do? I have this like completely like almost passed out woman in my back seat. And
Wow.
she was
Not
like,
suspicious.
I know. And I was like, what do I do? Like, I can't just kick her out. And I don't know. I had no idea what to do. So I basically just I took her to the address, and she was really out of it. And I literally had to carry her in and put her inside her house and had to leave. But like, what if I was like some creepy guy, and these friends just left her with me alone, like completely alone.
Wait,
They
not.
wanted to go out and party because they wanted to continue to go out and party.
So wait a minute, Rocco, you're not a creepy guy? Wait a minute, what?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, he is, but
not that kind of creepy.
He's an honorable creep. Anyway,
Oh, that's right. You didn't have the beard back then. Oh, that's right.
Right.
So Matt, Rocco and Andrew, y'all got to see Matt yesterday. How tall is he really?
Dude, he hit the ceiling, man.
Oh, come on! Don't make it up. He was a little bit taller than Rocco.
No, he was not a little bit taller. He was like, I mean, he was tall. I mean, my roommate is just a tad shorter than he is. So.
You refer to your wife as your roommate, really?
My roommate in college.
You didn't say it. You just said your roommate.
Yeah, that's true.
And your wife's not taller than you.
That's true. Which reminds me, by the way, Andrew, I've been wanting to ask you. Well, my wife been wanting to ask you a question.
Oh no, I'm in trouble.
Ever since you stayed at our house, for some reason, she thinks you might have accidentally taken our bath towel. I don't know. Nope. Okay.
Andrew spills bath towels all the time.
I left it behind the door, probably, or on the door.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to close the door without it.
She always takes some type of memorabilia.
Yeah, it's usually the towels.
Yeah. No. I mean, I wish I could have. I wish I could say yes, but I can't.
She's like, "Where's my bathroom towel? Did Andrew accidentally take it?" And I'm like, "Well, he is pretty slick because you were talking about how everybody used to call you slick."
No, I'm glad that I know that. I'm glad that I know that because I mean, I had some things planned, but this just changes what some of the planning.
She noticed the towels. Stop plan B. We can't go through with it.
Oh, no. Rocco did a very a bad thing. Rocco is very bad.
This isn't surprising.
I did a bad thing.
Yes.
Okay. You want to hear what
I'm going to make him tell the story.
Here, you want to know what Andrew did to me at the conference that we went to? So we go to this conference, okay? And Dan Phillips and Frank Turk is his name, right? Frank Turk,
yeah.
Who was one of the other speakers.
Mm-hmm.
We're speaking at this conference, and I am probably the only Presbyterian in the building, okay? Now, the conference was on justification by faith, and of course that's it doesn't matter if you're Presbyterian or Andrew dispensationalist or whatever. That's something we all can get behind and learn from. So it was lunchtime, and everybody from the conference was upstairs eating Chick-fil-A sandwiches. So I sit down, and Andrew sits across from me at this lunch table, and sitting right next to me is a local Baptist pastor, and across from him is Frank Turk, one of the speakers at the conference. And as some of you might know, I'm an exclusive psalmist. I only believe we should sing psalms. Now, I don't want to argue.
Now, correct that. You only believe you should sing songs in worship service.
Worship service.
I'm an eyewitness to hearing you sing some hymns.
Yes. Right. Right. So that's just background on my beliefs. So I sit down again. There's a local,
and they get weirder from there.
Yeah. So there's a local pastor sitting next to me, and Frank Turk sitting across from him, and they were already having a conversation. Their conversation.
Well, hold on. Explain what their conversation was.
Right, and their conversation was about the independent fundamentalist Baptists refusing to go to more modern day songs. They wanted to stick with the hymns, and that was the conversation they were having, like how the independent fundamentalist Baptists were being too strong-headed on their beliefs.
And I thought that Rocco would have a great insight in this discussion.
No. All I wanted to do, I'm listening to this conversation. I'm like, I am completely out of this conversation. I'm the only Presbyterian here. I'm just going to sit and have my Chick-fil-A sandwich. What does Andrew Rappaport do? He literally, or figuratively, takes the pin off the grenade, throws it on the table, and says, "Oh, by the way, Rocco's an exclusive psalmist." And not only that, he gets up and leaves me there to explain myself.
The dying and dead. I didn't get up and leave. I did introduce you as a, you sing Psalms only in your church. Someone tapped me on my shoulder, started a conversation with me at that point, and then someone else told me I needed, that I was needed downstairs. So I got up and left. You seemed very happy in the conversation, and Frank was, I think, happy to talk with you. He had, like, once he heard that, he was like, "Oh, I got questions for you," and started asking a whole bunch of questions. So I think you were in good hands. I think Frank was excited to speak with you.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's because
I gave you an opportunity to shine.
Right. Unlike some people I know, Frank was very gracious and wanting to talk about our.
Well, I knew Frank was gracious, so
yeah. But no, it ended up being okay. I mean, I explained my position, and I know I was.
And that was a nice red herring, by the way.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, instead of explaining what you did, you turned it into something to make me look bad. I like how you did that.
Yeah. Well, you said I did something bad, and so I was like, "Oh, I did something bad. Let me tell you this." Yeah. Throwing the proverbial grenade on the.
It
table.
Was not a grenade. I gave you an opportunity to shine in front of a speaker and offer your information, which I knew he would value.
Yeah, but I didn't. I wasn't even in the conversation. I have a bite full of Chick-fil-A sandwich in my mouth, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, Rocco's exclusive psalmody," and you should see the pastor and both Frank eyes just glare right at me. They're looking at each other, and then they both just stare me down. Like,
okay,
what?
This is a technique that Greg Kokel had taught me. When you get asked to speak, you always, when you speak at conferences, you end up going to lunch, and people love to ask the guy who spoke lots of questions, which means you don't get to eat lunch. So it's a tactic that you use to be able to ask people questions or divert the conversation so you can eat your lunch. And so that's what I did. So I enjoyed my Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, some people did. I had to. Mine was cold by the time I finished it because I had to go through a whole exegesis of why my church historically is saying Psalms this whole time. And well, the very first thing Frank Turk said to me, and he goes, "So you would actually believe the independent fundamentalist Baptists are liberal?" That was his first question, and I'm like, "Well, yes and no." Like, but honestly, in that conversation, to me, if you're singing hymns, if you're singing man-made biblical songs, I don't like, to me at that point, I don't understand why you would be against modern songs if they were just as scriptural as the hymns. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Why the end? So, like, I understand
because they're not written in King James English.
Well, yeah, that I guess so. But you know what I mean. Like, so, like, I found the whole conversation just like it's out of bounds for my views, because I would only muddy the waters.
In my defense, it was a topic, though. I mean, I would have found it interesting. And to have that conversation as a fundamentalist Baptist myself, but one that's way more liberal, I guess, than the other pastor. But the thing was, I really thought that you would have, and you did have, a lot to offer to kind of spicing up the conversation and really, knowing Frank a little bit and knowing you, I knew that it would really lead to a good conversation.
No, yeah, it did. No, I'm giving you some crap, but yeah, it was a good conversation.
So what Rocco did to me, you want to tell him?
No, go ahead. I told the last one. Go ahead.
I will admit that Rocco made it sound like what I did was so much worse, so that when I say what Rocco did, it's not going to seem like anything at all. But, so I stayed at Rocco's place, and Rocco, I basically gave him some money so that he could attend the conference. I thought that would be right since I'm staying at his place and he wasn't going to go. And so what did he do? He's help, and he did. By the way, I will say, for the record, Rocco did a great job. He was helping us run the book table, and he did a great job. But he also took the money I gave him and slipped it back into the money bag that we were giving to him. And so he told me that after I'm like halfway home. Oh, by the way, you know that $50 he gave me? Yeah, it's back in the money bag. So I have some plans to get that money back to him in ways that he just cannot return.
I'm gonna have like 1,000 tracks show up at my door one day. I know it.
Oh no, it'll be worse than that. Trust me. What I got planned? Oh, it's gonna be worse than that.
And I successfully bought your lunch too.
It was given by the church.
No,
Chick-fil-A. Oh,
no, the Permanis afterward.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That was wrong. That was seriously wrong.
Although you did buy my Eaton Park the night of the first conference too. So we're even on that.
The Eaton Park, what was that?
That was the
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So we're even on lunch.
No, we're not.
Dinner.
We're not even close to even.
Oh man, yeah, I did such a terrible thing. I gave Andrew Rappaport money back.
You see how he makes it? Either way, no matter what, he makes it so I look bad.
Oh man.
All right. Well,
shenanigans.
We won't bring up racial profiling here.
Okay. I'll at least, if you want to really get under Matt Slick's skin, buy him a meal that he wants to pay for. So we're at this is where Matt Slick says that I out-slick him. That's his term for it, not mine. But the joke is that in high school my nickname was Slick, not because it was my last name like Matt's, but because before I was saved, I was a very good thief, unfortunately. And so my friends would send me into a store, tell me to steal something, and then sit and watch me. And we'd walk out and they'd be like, well, see, we knew you couldn't do it. And then I'd pull out whatever it was they asked me to steal. And they were watching me and couldn't figure out how I did it. So they called me Slick. So anyway, so we got Mr. Slick and we go out for sushi one night and I decided I was going to pay. And he's like, no, I'm going to pay. So as he hands his credit card, I literally grabbed his credit card out of his hand and handed the waitress my credit card. He was so annoyed that he decided the next night, again, we went for sushi, by the way, kind of a pattern, but we were sitting there and he literally had his credit card in his hand like the entire night. Like as soon as the food when we were eating, he took his credit card out. He was ready to give it to the waiter, like as soon as the waiter came. I had to use the restroom, so I got up and I walked over to the waiter, asked where the restroom was, asked for the bill, paid the bill, went in, used the restroom, came out, signed the bill, took my credit card back, and sat down. Matt was sitting there for like 45 minutes. We're just kind of talking over dinner. And finally, he's like, man, where is this waiter? Because like after they got paid, they don't care to come back to the table. So he's like, where is this waiter? I have been waiting for the bill for like 40-some minutes. And I was like, why are you waiting? That was paid like an hour ago. He's like, what? I said, oh yeah, when I got up to use the restroom. He's like, you out-slicked me again. Yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah, I have that problem too. So we're going to go eat out. Okay.
I'm not convinced, Vincent. You have like a small football team or, in your household. You have no money.
That is very true.
Vincent's way of like getting a night out is that he sends all his kids to play baseball. And they're a team. The whole family is just one team. And just,
yep.
Sends them off to play baseball, get someone else to coach them. There you go.
The only time I get a real break is when I'm really sick and my wife will make sure they stay away from me at that point. Other than that, it's fair game.
That explains why you're sick so often.
Yeah, I know. I'll say, y'all, we went to it's called a children's home this weekend. An orphanage really is what it is.
Really? You're that desperate? You're dropping your kids off?
We went there. Yeah, I was going to say. I was like, y'all got a little extra room? But no, we did go there this weekend, and it was kind of – I let my kids see some of the less fortunate out there. That was a good. It was a good trip this weekend we had. We did it. We went with our church. So
You know what would be really wrong of me to do right now? Would be to share my screen.
Why?
Oh, I got Matt's new book right in front of me.
Oh, a preview.
Yeah. he wants me to review it. So I was like, yeah. I said that's only fair since I'm sending you mine in a few weeks. Oh.
Is that the apologetics and atheism book, or is this just like his actual novel that he's?
No, this is the apologetics and atheism book.
Yeah. Okay.
If I really want to get in trouble, if I seriously wanted to get in trouble, I would share the book by Dr. Anthony Silvestro from Creation Revival. I am not allowed to give the title. I was explicitly told.
He's the man.
I read the book, reviewed the book. I have to write the foreword for the book, and it is an awesome title. I mean, people are going to buy it for the title. I'm just saying.
Well, are you allowed to tell us what the subject is?
It'll deal with evangelism, creation science, and presuppositional apologetics. All three of them in one. And it should be out at G3. Just saying. So come to the table, and I better have my book done by then. Otherwise, I'm in trouble.
What type of creation science?
What do you mean? What type?
So is it perspectives of a young Earth, old Earth, evolution?
Young Earth, yeah.
I am at him right now for the title name. He better tell me.
You're IMing him, you said?
Yeah, Anthony.
Dude, you know how old school IM is? I mean, that's like not even used anymore.
1992.
I'm not talking IRC. I'm just talking about Facebook IM.
Dude, aren't you a techie? I mean, and you don't know that IM died like when my kids were...
No. Any form of instant message is still an instant message.
Well, yeah, technically Facebook has instant messenger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do still
so you ask him and you'll see if he'll... But you better not... Well, I will text him and tell him that I did not give the title up.
No, I'm not saying you gave the title out. Andrew Rappaport just told us the title of your book.
He knows I wouldn't. But it is good. It's really, really good. Anyway, and then I got a book coming out that I'll be adding a chapter on, and it looks like maybe I talked Jeff Durbin into doing a chapter in the book as well. I'm hoping because I think it'll be neat. But Jeff Durbin and also Jim Wallace this is with Mormon Research Ministry. And when I talked to Jim Wallace, he knew actually both of those guys knew exactly who MRM was. So, but I guess if you deal a lot with Mormons, you kind of know who they are. So I'll be writing a chapter on open air preaching to Mormons.
Yeah, I know Jeff Durbin does a lot with them.
Yeah, that's why I thought he'd be good.
Are there any new arguments given for creation science?
Is there any what?
Are there any new arguments given in the book for Christian Science?
Depends what you mean by new arguments. I mean, the Bible provides the only argument we need.
Like what?
Like there was evening, morning, the first day, evening, morning, the second day, evening, morning, the third day, and so on.
But Andrew, the framework hypothesis.
Well, okay, then we should work 1 million years before we 6 million years before we take a million years off.
Yeah.
Well, they said that the Sabbath for the land is a whole year versus 6 years in working this.
Where do you see the Sabbath for the land was?
So
okay. You're talking that's a difference in the Sabbath. That's a separate from the 7th day week.
No, it's the week. The creation week is typified in a sequential pattern of 6 and 1. There's no specified statement of how long each day is.
Yeah,
it's
but
just a yom.
but the difference is with the Jubilee and the Sabbath rest, it is not tied to the days of creation like the week is. So we have 6 days we work and a day we rest is specifically listed. The reason specifically listed is because God created on 6 days and then the seventh he rested. You don't have that. So when you look at this, the land for 6 years and the seventh rest, that's a type. But with this, the week, it wasn't used as a type, it was used as a literal.
It's a type all around. Exodus 20 is a type. Leviticus 25 is a type.
So Exodus 20 is a type.
Is a type.
So we shouldn't murder is a type. We shouldn't commit adultery is a type. We shouldn't steal is a type.
Those are specific laws. There's a connection between. Look, when I say look, I'm speaking like how Moses was talking. He's saying, or even God actually, he's saying that and in fact the preposition in is not even in the Hebrew. So for 6 yoms I did this work, and then I ceased in my activity on the 7th yom.
Yeah.
So in the same way,
that's directly tied. Now my question is, on the Sabbath year, is it tied to the 6 days of creation?
Yes.
Okay, where's that?
That's in Leviticus 25. Verse, so let's see here. So, verse 2, tell the Israelites that when you enter the land that I'm about to give you, you are to let the land observe a Sabbath to the Lord for 6 years. Notice the numerical pattern there. For 6 years.
Yeah, but you're talking a pattern. That's my point. That's a type. I have no problem with the pattern. But yeah, it's not tied to the days of creation.
Sabbath is always tied to the days of creation. Like Hebrews 4 ties it to the creation. Psalm 95 ties it to the creation. Sabbath.
Show me which verse.
Where does the Sabbath come from? It has to be the creation.
Okay, show me which verse ties this to the creation, the days of creation.
Well, isn't there a whole bunch?
Exodus 20, you pointed it out. It's specific to the days of creation because the Lord created in 6 days and rested on 1.
But the preposition in is not in Exodus 20:11. So grammatically, that is not a 624 period.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You're saying in Exodus 20, where he says, for 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all them in them, and on the 7th he rested. That verse is not there because the word in is not there. I don't need the word in. For 6 days the Lord created the heavens and earth. That ties it directly to creation.
For 6 yoms. If it had the like days. For example, the King James translation has the word in italics to showcase that obviously it's not.
I don't care. I don't need the. I'm giving you that. I'm giving you that and saying I don't care about that.
Yeah.
This is.
And I'm saying.
So maybe you're not understanding.
If the word in was there, then it would be 624.
Okay. What's your name? So I know who I'm talking to.
My name's Han.
Han. Okay. Han. Yeah. So maybe you're not understanding the question. So verse 11 is literally speaking of the days of creation, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to show that to me in Leviticus now. Not a type, literally referring to the days of creation.
The type is the type of work you're doing. Exodus 20 says God works in a 6 and 1 pattern. So you are to work in a 6 and 1 pattern. And oh, by the way, the same 6 to 1 pattern is applied to the land. That's Leviticus 25.
Okay, okay. So what you're doing is you're eisegeting. You're reading into a text something that's not there. So
no, I'm not.
Okay, then you show me. Don't assume. Don't assume. Hold on.
I could appeal to Levine. All these Jewish scholars who agree with me.
Don't assume the pattern as a literal, and then show me the literal. I'm saying that in Leviticus 25, it is a type. It is a pattern. It's not literal.
Why not Exodus 20:11 as well?
Because it says the reason is literally because of the days of creation. That's what makes that one different.
How long were the days of creation?
Well, morning, evening, first day, morning, evening, second day, morning, evening, third day, kind of clear.
Evening to morning in Ugaritic is chaos to order, and there's no definite article before the word yom.
So can you give me a time where there's a numeric number before a day and it means more than a 24-hour day? Or where there's morning or evening before day?
Hebrews 6. I mean, not Hebrews 6. Hosea 6 verse 2 and 3.
Hosea 6 what?
Hosea 6 verses 2 and 3.
2 and 3. After 2 days, that's 2 literal days, he will revive us. On the third day, that's a numeral before the day. Is that a 24-hour day? Or is that a long period of time?
Is this a long period of time in the context of Israel? Was Israel restored in 3 days?
So you're saying this is a long period of time?
Obviously.
Well, let me read the context and see. So what are you saying that this is referring to?
Well, this is referring to the restoration of Israel that is then connected to Jesus, the Son of God. Well, a Messiah figure that then was actualized in Jesus, and hence the language in the New Testament about 3 days he'll rise again, that sort of thing.
So you're saying that this is referring to Christ?
Christ typifies this, but Israel, we're talking hundreds of years, maybe even nearly 1,000 years between the time of, say, Israel's judgment and then Israel's restoration. Some people would take the restoration to mean happening in the church, but the church replaces Israel. Dispensationalists say, well, that's still yet future as far as, they take that current state of Israel to be distinct yet part of the church. The point is that there's a huge gap of time. This is not 24. This is not 3 24-hour days.
Well, it depends. If you're saying it's referring to Christ, then it would be 3 24-hour days of Christ being raised up. So I'd have to look at what
Friday to Sunday is not 3 24 days.
Sure it is. In a Jewish reckoning, it's 3 days. Morning to evening to morning.
No.
What do you mean no?
At most, you'd be talking about 10 hours, 11 hours, even 12 hours.
Yeah, but it's in the Jewish way of reckoning a day is any part of the day is a day. So Christ was crucified and rose again 3 days later. It doesn't have to be 3 24-hour days the way we would see it today. It's any part of the day would count as that day.
Right.
So after 2 days, he revives us. On the third day, he rises up.
Yeah.
If you're saying that's referring to Christ, then I would still say that's literal.
Jesus is not the only person being, Jesus is not the only culmination of this prophecy. This is about Israel, the people.
So is this the only one that you have? Is a prophetic? Or do you
I'm looking at it grammatically, like in Genesis 1. You have no definite article. The evening and morning phraseology, the structure of where they're positioned, shows that it cannot be speaking about an evening and a morning, because it's already mentioned in verse 5 in Genesis 1. And yeah, I don't see how God needs to work or is literally forced to work in an explicitly 24 periods.
Do you think that the Jewish people think that this is a long period of time, that they would interpret it that way?
Philo did.
Yeah.
Maimonides did. Nachmanides did.
So,
even Paul in Hebrews, he thought it was a long period of time.
Yeah.
And the Psalms.
What year is it in the Jewish calendar right now? Do you know?
5,700 something.
Yeah. What's that 5,000 refer to?
Not in regards to creation.
Oh, yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Okay. Every rabbi I've ever had in Hebrew school always told me that. So what's your authority on knowing that?
My authority is the Sumerian king list, because these Jews, that the dating came relatively late, and they haven't taken into account the fact that the genealogies are in base 60 number system, which means they're not literal values. So Genesis 5 should not be included in, because that's where they get the
you haven't answered the question yet. So what does the 5,000 refer to? And please cite your source.
5,000 refers to the long genealogies mentioned in the Bible, going all the way back to Adam.
I mean, that would make sense. You know, going from.
So,
oh, sorry.
No,
but
ahead,
Adam is after the creation. So how far back is the creation from Adam?
I guess, I mean, going from what I'm hearing, that makes sense on both sides, because the genealogy leads to Adam. Adam was, according to younger creationism, is right there at the beginning of creation. But you know, he's saying the Genesis. So I see how both sides can actually agree with that.
And then let me just give you the actual sources. So I'll drop it in here for you, and then we can read it. This is from the Haaretz. Israel's official calendar is the Hebrew one. According to Jewish counting, on September 24th, 2014, we entered the year 5,775. That is the supposed 5,775th year since the world was created on Saturday night, October 6th, 3,761 BCE. So
how do they go? What do they include? The 624 period days before Adam as part of the genealogy?
We're going to stay on the topic. The topic was, what is the 5,700 plus years?
But I am on topic. I'm asking the question.
So does it refer
calendar including the 6 days as 24 periods?
Does it refer to the creation of the world, or the genealogies, as you stated? Now, this is a Jewish source. This is not me giving. This is, So, which one is it?
Which source are you reading from? I would like to see this.
I just dropped it. I dropped it in the chat now. I'll drop the exact wording.
See this. Okay, let's see.
So how do they know that that it was in September that the world was created?
Well, I mean, what they do is they base it off the genealogies in the scriptures, and then they worked it back. Now, I mean, obviously, we with the datings that we have of a better dating of different events that we now have, we would date it more accurately as more than 6,000 years. But the point being is, when someone's making a case that this is not how Jewish people would be thinking, and you're speaking to someone who spent over 10 years in Hebrew school and was raised Jewish, and I'm can quote sources that contradict you, and you haven't given any to support your claim that this is not the Jewish way of thinking. I'm sorry, but Jewish people take it literally.
I'm just wondering, how did you get...
No. I'm referring to Second Temple Judaism. Did you ever learn that in Jewish school? So are you familiar with the pseudepigrapha and the apocrypha, like prior to Christianity, that refer to these periods as long periods of time? Like, for example, the 6 days, we're talking a minimum of 7 years or something like that.
Yeah. And so which group of Jewish people held to that? Do you know?
The Qumran community would have held to that. Whoever wrote the Book of Enoch held to that. Then whoever wrote the Book of Jubilees held to that. We're talking about Second Temple Judaism during
it wasn't the conservative Pharisees.
Sorry?
And the people that so it wasn't the conservatives, it was the two groups that held to this were, you know, as Vincent's saying, more the Gnostic Jews. They're those that were more influenced with Greek thinking. And then you had the others were what's called the Sadducees, which are the liberal Jews. They didn't believe in resurrection. They didn't believe in a lot of things that the Bible speaks of. Yet
these so-called Gnostic Jews are the reason why we have the Trinity, because they held to the two powers in heaven ideas.
That's actually debatable when we look at some of the early, basically, so the way that the Talmud was, most people don't understand how the Talmud came about. It's a redacted work. And so the Talmud was started to be written before Christ, but after Christ, it was reactionary to Christ. And so there was in Judaism a reference to 3 in 1. They've changed. The question is, did they change what those references were to? There's some. I have not been able to see this firsthand, but there's some earlier, manuscripts from the Talmud that seem to indicate that maybe that the Trinity was held earlier, but it was redacted out. I can't say that specifically.
It became heretical in the 2nd century AD. That's the earliest we can go back as far as when it became a heresy. Otherwise, if it wasn't for them, we would not have the backing for. Yeah.
Well, no, we have the Bible is the backing for it, but I'm saying that there is debate on whether prior to Christ, it seems from some scholars that Jewish people did have a view of a Trinity, but as you say, by the 2nd AD, they're starting to counter that. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't held previously. And the question is, who's coming up with the counters? I mean, if you don't believe that history gets, that there's revisionist history that goes on, then you don't believe in the media in America these days. So
what science do you advocate that shows that the Earth actually is young?
What science?
Yeah.
My authority is Scripture. But does science support it? Sure. The fact that we have, as we said in the previous hangout, so you have things like red blood cells in a T-Rex, can't last millions of years. You have soft tissues in a Triceratops horn, can't last millions of years. The fact that we still see
responses to those things, though? Have you seen Mary Schweitzer responses to that?
Yeah.
Especially in an article this gone March, where she was able to identify the sex of the T-Rex and also give a link to avian evolution with an ostrich.
And I also remember the early work, the very first article that I remember seeing that she wrote on it, where she said that she retested it 19 times, and the reason she didn't want to come out with it is because she knew that Christians would use it to argue for a young Earth. And so what is she saying? She didn't want to give the evidence until she had a way of explaining how the evidence doesn't support her conclusion. And that's what you want to rely on.
But she herself is a Christian, though.
Huh?
She's a Christian.
No, she isn't.
Yes, she is.
Okay. Maybe in a very wide definition of Christian, but...
Well,
so,
she would be. What do you mean by that? She's a theistic evolutionist who believes in Jesus as the Lord and Savior.
Yeah. She doesn't believe in the Bible as an authority, does she?
I'm a theistic evolutionist, and I believe the Bible is authoritative.
I didn't ask you what you believe, did I? I mean, that's a logical fallacy.
No,
unless you tell me
she's
you're
not
married.
she's not holding to a specific interpretation. She's just going, look, my science and the research and the data is showing me one thing. Therefore, whatever the interpretation of Genesis
is the second red herring that I've seen you do. So again, you made the claim that she's a Christian, so you have to support this. And you can't support it with the fact that you're a theistic evolutionist and a Christian. Do you know that
no. Hang on a second. You're making the point that she doesn't hold scripture at a high standard. Can you show me? Can you verify that to me?
Yeah, let me see if I could dig that up for you. It was in a lecture she had given.
I'm here, so I don't get time.
Are you telling me you did not say that she was a Christian?
I'm saying that she is a Christian.
Okay, so and you don't think you need to support that? Okay, I just for the record, I just want it known that you believe that I have to support my arguments. You don't have to support yours. That's fine. Let's see. So,
I'm just going to point out something.
You'd like me to take you at your word, is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. I would like you to take evidence and facts, and that's the difference between us.
Okay. Well, the fact that you hold to creation science already tells us one thing.
Yeah, it tells me you have confirmation bias by what you just said.
No.
So I'm wrong because I believe in a young Earth because that's where science leads it to.
Science doesn't lead to a young Earth.
Because
never has.
Really?
No.
So my statement, what I believe is questionable because I believe in a young Earth. Is that what you just said?
You believe in a young Earth because you have an interpretation that leads to that conclusion, and then you try and find science to back up that conclusion.
So now you know why I believe what I believe. So you even know what I'm thinking and what my thought process is. Is that correct?
Well, you did say Scripture was your foundation.
Yes. So you're saying okay? No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll grant that. So you're saying Scripture teaches a young Earth and science teaches a different.
I'm not saying Scripture.
If that's what you're saying.
Scripture showcases an old Earth, and
hold on.
Genesis is about evolution.
If you're going to make that argument, then you cannot also claim that the Scripture is your authority, because you just denied that
I just said that Genesis showcases evolution, and therefore I can use that as an authoritative argument to the atheist to say, look, and I've done this before, and the community says it's nothing but a coincidence.
No, stop. I'm not going to let you mask it with going on to something else. You said that the reason is because I said the Bible's my authority, and that's where I get the young Earth from. So do I get it because that's what the Bible teaches or not?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Okay, thank you. So the Bible teaches a young Earth, and you
don't come to a young Earth through science. You come to the young Earth through the Bible, according to your
Thank you. I think that brilliant. I would agree with that. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, and to flip that around, I come to an old Earth through the Bible as well.
Wouldn't you just have contradicted yourself then?
How did I contradict myself?
You just said that you get to the young Earth by reading the Bible, but now you're saying you get to an old Earth by reading the Bible. That's a
Yeah,
contradiction. And
I
and
read
I want to point something else really
I
quick.
read all that from Genesis.
Can I point out something else really quick? How quickly you ran from the scriptures once Andrew pinned you down and ran to science? That tells me now your authority isn't scripture first, it's science first.
No, the book of nature is a Reformation idea.
Hey, can I actually clean something up real quick? I think what General actually said, General Han Solo, he's saying that, Andrew, by your interpretation of Scripture, you got young Earth. And by General's interpretation of Scripture, he got old Earth. Not saying that's not a contradiction when you get two different interpretations of what Scripture says.
Well, no, the issue is he said the only reason I can come to a young Earth is because that's what the Bible teaches.
From your interpretation.
He said that's why I had to, because he didn't ask me. He told me. So he told me that this is how I came to this conclusion. So he knows what I'm thinking.
What did I say? What did I say? Just to remind me.
Well, if I can real quick, General, do you mean by interpretation? Is that what you're talking about, General?
So I'm saying that he did not come to a young Earth through science. He came to a young Earth through an interpretation of Genesis. That's it.
Okay. So it's by interpretation.
Then he uses that to try and because now that's his foundation. That he has to, it's a young Earth. So then he tries to find science to fit that conclusion.
You're doing the same thing in opposite direction.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I'm doing the same thing in opposite direction because the science shows an old Earth, and the Bible also shows it.
You assume that.
You
assume that. I'm sorry, that's crazy.
How is that crazy?
I just want to put a plug in there for scientific anti-realism.
There is no science that can defend a young Earth. That's my point.
Because you won't accept it. That's called confirmation bias.
I'm a physicist.
Okay.
And you mentioned,
so what?
For example, beforehand with Brenda and also with Matt Slick, you were both talking about, in this case, Matt Slick said that the universe can be old and the Earth young. Do you know what model he's deriving that from?
No, Matt has always said that he doesn't know the age of the Earth.
Yeah, but he did say the Earth is young.
No, he gave differing views that he's heard. He hasn't studied the issue and he doesn't take a position on it.
All right, then that's great if he doesn't take a position on it. But I know the model he's deriving from.
Okay.
In fact, I know the physicist who developed the model because we both are in the...
Wow, now we have an appeal to another logical fallacy.
How is that a logical fallacy? He's a young creationist.
Because you know the physicist that makes it right. Okay.
Anyway, maybe we should move on. Unless you want to keep going.
Well, he hasn't demonstrated a young Earth from the Bible and from science, so.
But you're doing the same thing in opposite direction.
No. Hold on. I didn't need to. You did it for me. You said you can only come to the young Earth view if you get it from the Bible. I agreed with that.
No. I did not mean it that way.
Okay, how did you mean it? Because you told me you don't know anything about what
I specifically said your interpretation of Genesis is the reason why you come to a young Earth. And in fact, here's
where did I get that view from?
I see it this way. It's nothing but an English reading of the text that has that leads someone to a young Earth.
Where did I get this view from? Since you're telling me what I know and what I don't know, where did I get the view from?
I don't know where you got the view from, but I know where the view came from. Okay.
And so you know that the interpretation is wrong because of the science?
Both the scripture and the science. They both validate each other.
Did he just say that you can only come from a young Earth creationist view if you read the Bible in English?
Yeah.
Yet
Well, no.
I'm pretty sure Andrew's ancestors read the scriptures in Hebrew.
Well, that's why I was getting to the question, because that's where I would get it from, is the Hebrew, not English. But
Really? So explain to me no definite article, and what was the language prior to Moses, prior to Hebrew?
There's no definite article in front of the word God, word, so therefore Jesus was a God.
No. I'm talking, that's Greek. That is an anathrus. You're not combining Greek with Hebrew.
It's the same.
I'm asking from Genesis 1, you have
why does there need to be a definite article
and
there?
then no definite article before Yom.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. Why does there need to be a definite article?
If there was a definite article, and if you have either evening to evening or morning to morning, then you would have a specific 24-hour period.
Okay, and is that the way Jewish people speak? Evening to evening, morning to morning?
So this is a form of Paleo Hebrew that is not utilized in modern Hebraic formalization. So Ugaritic is the parent language to Hebrew. And in Ugaritic, Erev and Bokar is chaos and order. And Gerald Schroeder, in fact, very recently, I was looking into this to see if there's any contemporary Hebrew scholars today that hold the same thing, and he's actually written on this specifically.
Evening to evening. Wow. That only shows up once in the entire Bible, so I guess there's only one Sabbath that is we can take your theory on. So let's see. Evening to morning. I spelled that wrong. So let's see. We have evening to morning in, let's see, so Exodus 27:21, in the tent of meeting outside the veil, it was before the testimony. Aaron and his sons shall tend it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a salute forever and an observation throughout their generations. So I guess that wasn't actually like a morning and an evening, right? Wouldn't be a day.
What's the verse?
Exodus 27:21 is one case where there's evening to morning. Let's see where we have. Let's see, evening. In 5.
Okay,
words.
Evening to morning. From evening until
words.
morning in the Lord's presence. All right. Let's see the Hebrew construction here. You should also check out Psalm 55:17.
Okay. So evening and morning at noon, and I utter my complaint and moan, and my ears hear my voice. Okay.
So now you have a very specific 24 period.
Where?
In Psalm 55.
In Psalm 55:17?
Yeah.
But I call to the Lord, I call to God, and the Lord will save me. Evening and morning and at noon, I utter my complaint and moan, and he hears my voice. Where's the day?
No, here you have a, again, and even Dahoud is another Hebrew scholar on the Psalms. He makes the point that here you have a specific, as far as how you can, grammatically stretch out what you mean by a 24-hour period, an entire day. So David is basically saying, the entire day I cried out in my distress, and he heard my voice. So it's very specific. but Genesis 1 doesn't have such specific, qualities in regards to what this yom means.
Mm-hmm. So let me get this straight. I would have to understand this specialized, view of Hebrew that isn't used to come to the conclusions that you come to without a simple reading of Scripture, correct? Like if I just read Genesis and walk away just reading Genesis 1 and 2, do I think that it's a literal 7-day period?
Well, that's that's kind of like what I was getting at. That if you were to just read it as a plain reading, are you saying in English or in Hebrew?
In Hebrew.
Not
your special Hebrew that doesn't exist. I'm talking the Hebrew that we have, that it was written in.
The so-called special Hebrew that I hold to is from people like Gleason Archer and John Sailhammer and John Walton and Michael Heiser and Dahoud and Jacob Milgram and Levine. These are all Hebrew scholars and ancient Semitic scholars that agree with me.
If I wonder if you'll ever get to answering the question. If I read the scriptures, whether Hebrew or English, do I walk away thinking it's 6 literal days and a literal
I would
day
say
of
no,
rest?
because you can't see that in Genesis 1, and the 7th day is.
Why can't you
spoken
see
of
that in
as-
Genesis 1?
You can't see that in Genesis 1.
Show me from Genesis 1.
Hang a second. And the 7th day, according to Scripture, has continued on until today. That's
Okay.
in Psalm 95 and in Hebrews 4.
Psalm 95 now. Okay, Psalm 95 what?
We'll go to Hebrews 4 because it's quoting
Hebrews
Psalm
4.
95.
Okay, Hebrews 4. What verse?
Let's see. Read from verse 4 down to 7.
For he has somewhere spoken of the 7th day in this way, and God rested on the 7th day from all his works. And again, in this passage he said, and they shall not enter my rest. Oh, you're putting it up on Libronics. Yeah. Wow, dude, you just dated yourself. That's Logos 3.
That's Logos 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Told you.
I actually, until recently, had Libronics still, because they used to have the better Greek and Hebrew.
To be honest, when I'm looking at Logos 6 and 7, that looks so much more complicated than this. I still prefer this.
It's very, very different. Take a Logos camp and you'll love it. That's all I can say.
Okay.
If you take the Logos camp, though, it's quite powerful. The problem is you got to look. It's like you can use Logos without using its full power, basically. So basically here he's stating. Well, let me pick up back at verse 5. Sorry, because I didn't finish reading. And again, in this passage, he said, "They shall not enter my rest, since therefore it remains for some to enter it. And those who formerly received the good news failed and will not failed to enter because of disobedience. Again, he appointed a certain day, today, saying through David so long afterwards, in the words already quoted, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts."
Right.
Okay.
To see how
so
it connects it with on this, and it's quoting on the 7th day, God rested from all his actions. So you have this rest, this theological. It's not just God ceasing. There's a theological thing associated with this rest that then is applied to ultimately Jesus when so again, verse 7, he again fixes a definite day, today, saying long afterward through David, as already quoted, today if you hear his voice. So don't do what Israel did in Psalm 95. Now we have Jesus.
Where do you see Psalm
And
95 being referenced? Let's see where.
here and over here. So the footnote has Psalm 95 verses 7 to 8.
7 to 8.
Yep. So it's a quotation of that.
Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before our Lord, our Maker. For he is our God, and we are his people of his pasture, the sheep of his hand. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts, as at Meribah, as in the day of Massah, in the wilderness.
Right. And so verse 9 basically concludes, verse 9 and 10. There remains, therefore, a Sabbath rest for the people of God, which is now the church, because the one who enters God's rest has himself rested from his own actions, just as God did from his. So this rest, this period of time of rest, has gone from the seventh day all the way up to basically now the church era.
How many Sabbaths are there in Hebrew, in Judaism?
No. This is talking about the rest. We're talking about
which one? Which Sabbath are you talking about? The seventh day, the seventh year, the 7 times 70 year, the Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. Which one?
None of that. We're talking about the seventh day.
And that verse that you're using in Hebrews 4, it uses the word rest pretty much throughout, except for one time it uses the word Sabbaton or something like that, with the root of Sabbath, and that where it says that therefore there remaineth a Sabbath rest. That word Sabbath.
Notice verse 11. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. The author of
that's not the verse I was talking about.
But Rocco, it doesn't matter. He just gave up his argument. He said this is not referring to the seventh day of creation.
I didn't say that.
I asked you which day it referred to. The seventh day, the seventh year, the seventh of 70, the Rosh Hashanah or the Yom Kippur, and there's others because you have Passover. All those are Sabbaths. I asked you which one. You said none of them, correct?
I was getting at none except the seventh day as mentioned in Genesis.
So now it's none except. Okay.
Because that's what Hebrews 4 is saying. Jesus is the culmination of that rest.
I just asked you a question. You said none. Now you said none except. What you're doing is you're modifying everything you say to fit the conclusion you're starting with.
Has the seventh day continued up until today, as according to Hebrews 4?
Which Sabbath day?
The seventh day of creation.
Is that the only? So that's the only Sabbath that there is.
For example, in Genesis,
that the only,
it doesn't have.
I'm trying to apply hermeneutics. I'm trying to apply proper hermeneutics, and maybe you're not understanding this, but we don't read into a text a meaning that's not there. We read out of the text what it actually says. How many Sabbaths are there? Do you know?
Oh, there are plenty of Sabbaths. Various types of Sabbaths.
How do you then say that this is that specific one?
Because it says in verse 4, somewhere he has spoken about the seventh day as follows. On the seventh day, God rested from all his actions.
And what's that? Show me where he's referring to that. Because you're saying that's going back to Hebrews.
Look, up here. I've highlighted it for you.
I can see that in the Greek.
What do you mean? So what? He's not quoting Genesis 2?
So he's and if you read here, he's saying on the seventh day, right? The passage you're focusing in on is where he's using that as a typology because he makes that clear. He says, therefore, since it is still true that someone will enter into the land. Okay, he's now referring to it differently as he's saying here, and again he fixes a definite day to day. So the seventh day, if we're going to take it literal the way you're doing it, the seventh day is not the seventh day. It was back in David's time.
No. Look up here. Look.
Again, he fixes a definite day.
Verse 3. We who have believed are entering that rest, just as he has said. So in my anger, I swore a solemn oath that they would never enter my rest, even though his actions had been finished since the creation of the world. So in fact, the alpha point, I would also say the omega point, the culmination of what this rest means is culminated in that period of time where God rests from creating. It has nothing to do with Israel, how Israel was during the wilderness, and Israel during King David's time, and all the various ways in which they looked at the Sabbath, because there are various ways of appealing to the Sabbath. The author is specifically saying that period of time when God rested, that when you start the stopwatch from that point onwards, there's this Sabbath rest in Yahweh, and that has continued up until today. So long afterward, we have this 2 days still being applied even in the church context.
So yeah, go ahead.
How does that then prove your point about the days, though? Because I could state that, yeah, God entered into his rest after the seventh day, therefore we should enter into that rest and trust in him alone for salvation.
Yeah,
but how does that prove? Wait, how does that prove then what you're saying about those days being longer days?
If the seventh day is a 24-hour period, then how do we enter into that seventh day of rest?
Because the seventh day rest is that God stopped creating.
No. God's seventh day of rest, which is we're speaking about the creation seventh day.
Which is what?
How do we enter that rest if it was a 24-hour period?
Okay, tell me what you think rest means to God in that seventh day.
His ceasing in creating.
Okay.
And we see this after the Cambrian explosion.
God stopped creating bara out of nothing on the seventh day, and that continues to today.
Not just bara. You have Asar, Hayah, all those other.
It doesn't matter. You still the point being is, so God stopped creating. This is where I'm struggling, because you say things that are correct and then you apply them incorrect, and you don't even see you're doing that. So this has absolutely nothing. This passage you're bringing up has absolutely nothing to do with whether the 6 days of creation.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Is the seventh day of creation, as seen in Genesis, is that a 24-hour period?
Say that again?
Is the seventh day of creation, or however you want to call it, the seventh day in Genesis 2, is that a 24-hour period?
Is the seventh day a 24-hour period? Yes. Is the rest that God did a 24-hour period? No. And what you're referring to here is the rest, that he did not continue creating, that he's not creating.
The rest is in connection to that period of time.
Yeah, the seventh day, when he stopped, when he rested from his creation.
Yes, and
that
in
doesn't
that
mean
day,
that doesn't mean that
those.
Yom, hold on. That doesn't. You're trying to say, okay, because of this, it means the other 6 days, and that seventh day wasn't actually a 24-hour day.
But that's the very day that Hebrews 4 says today. He fixes a definite day today.
One of the things you do when you
in regards to the seventh day.
One of the things you do when you do hermeneutics is you read. You have to take the meaning from the text before jumping all over the place. You, in your interpretation, to justify your position, have to jump all over the Bible to get it to say something it doesn't say just from the original text. So when we look at Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, it seems to me, it's clear to you that you can't argue your case just from those passages. That's why you're jumping all over the Bible to try to make it say things that is not an issue for us here. I'm agreeing.
No.
God rested on the seventh day, and that rest continues till today. That doesn't mean anything about the number of hours in the day.
Yes, it does.
But the problem is
because God stopped creating.
If you're saying it's a 25 period, then God rested for 24 hours. That's what you're saying.
No, I did not say that. So
you didn't see. The problem is you're applying.
I'm saying that's a ramification of your argument.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is. Because Hebrews 4 says
so. So let me see if I can summarize. You've been able to today say that you know not only what I think, you know what I know, you know how the conclusions I come to, even if I disagree on all these facts, you know better than me what I think and what I know and how I come to conclusions and what my conclusions are, even when I tell you that they're not. That's when I cut off conversation. Because when you start telling me that you know better than me what I believe, I'm done with you. You're not being reasonable.
No, I'm sharing my screen to show you the evidence that I'm proposing. Look,
look, you won't even give me your real name. So whatever your name is, the fact is, I'm telling you it's not my conclusion, and you told me I'm wrong. You think you know better than me what my conclusion is. No, you don't. You're wrong. I don't care what your screen says. You can show me your screen, but you're telling me what I believe. You've told me what I know, and I disagreed with it. You told me how I came to conclusions, and I disagreed with it. And now you're telling me what my conclusions are, and I'm disagreeing with it. That is unreasonable. That's not how you're going to have intellectual conversation with somebody. I have tried to sit there and understand your position, even though you've been wishy-washy about it, because when I take what you say and I then apply exactly what you say, you go, well, no, I said everything but this. Well, you said no, and then you're saying no except for this. You're being wishy-washy.
Wrong here? Is Gleason Archer wrong here? Could you refute what Gleason Archer says here?
Why do I have to refute what he says?
Because Gleason Archer, I think, would know way more about Hebrew grammar than any of us in this room.
Appeal to authority?
Yeah.
Not appeal to authority.
Okay, so you're telling me that I have to have the conclusion that you bring to because you have an authority that says so.
No, I'm just saying, look at the argument he's making. Is his argument legitimate?
I find it quite interesting. I wonder if he applies the same hermeneutic into the Psalms as trying to use in Hebrews that he does in Genesis. I mean, you're using a figurative book to interpret a literal historical event and trying to smash that figurative into the historical.
So David in Psalm 104 thought that Genesis 1 had carnivorous activity, that the flood was local, and you're saying he was wrong.
So now that I read this, I can honestly say, yeah, I have no problem saying that this has absolutely nothing to do with what I was saying. Thank you.
It has everything. It agrees with what I've been presenting to you.
I'm sure it agrees with everything you're presenting. It has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
He says, there were 6 major stages in his work of formation, and these stages are represented by successive days of a week. In this connection, it is important to observe that none of the 6 greater days bears a definite article in the Hebrew text, and then he goes into that translation.
Have I made any argument? Have I made any argument about the definite article being necessary? Yes or no?
I've made the argument, and you're saying.
Can you answer a direct question? Say yes or no.
I've made the argument that you need the definite article.
I did not ask you what your argument was. I will ask it again.
Your argument was just reading. You said just reading the plain Hebrew without my specialized Hebrew or something like that.
Okay.
And I'm saying my so-called specialized Hebrew is according to Gleason Archer.
What we're seeing is that there's one of the two of us one of the two of us, that's actually engaging with the other person. I'm engaging with everything that you're saying. You've yet to engage with what I've actually said. You're engaging with what you expect me to say or what you think I mean by what I say. That's why you're having trouble answering questions.
If I wasn't engaging with the argument, I wouldn't be presenting all these points.
I'm not making any of these points. That's my proof. You just proved my point.
No.
Because I didn't make... Okay, then you tell me, when did I make an argument on the definite article? Since you're bringing this up and you keep going back to this, when did I make that to be an issue?
You made it an issue when you said, read the Hebrew plainly. So I'm using that and saying, okay.
And I said that there needs to be a definite article to prove this point?
You didn't say it in those words.
Did I say anything that even come close to that?
You said Hebrew. Look at the Hebrew text. So what am I supposed to do?
And with that, we're going to end the show.
Are you saying I should ignore, that we should just ignore the argument?